Hey folks, Mr. Dell here. We are looking at diamond problems. It's that pattern of numbers in the shape of a diamond, and knowing that you've got certain things you've got to find some blanks here. So I'm going to take this problem from uh, CPM. This is course 2 is where this is coming from. And this is section 4.1.2 and number 4-19. Okay. So it's asking us to find these missing values, right? Complete each diamond problem below. The pattern used the diamond problem is shown at the right. So a reminder of the pattern right here. So what does this pattern mean? So these are the numbers. XY represents just your numbers, and then XY like this. So this is the X, this is the Y, these are the numbers. So XY together, that's multiplication. So what we have here is that's the product of those two, of that number and that number. And then here we have an addition sign between the X and the Y. So that's the sum. So if I know those two, I just have to multiply to get that number and add to get that number. Let me show you an example, just a quick example other than these over here. If this number is -2, if X is -2 and Y is 5, we'll say. So if I have a diamond problem where I have -2 on this side, 5 on this side, that's the X, that's the Y. What do? The top is the product. So you're going to go -2 times 5. So I multiply those two and I get -10. So -2 times 5 is -10. And then if I add them, -2 plus 5, I get +3. So that's how you complete a diamond problem. Now, with these, they're a little more difficult because you have to do some backwards operations here. So we're now looking for the number here that when I add to it 1.2, I get -1.8. So what I'm looking for is something, right? Something plus 1.2 is going to equal -1.8. All right, so I got to figure out what that is. Well, first of all, let's talk through this. I've got a positive number here and I'm adding it to another number, and I end up with a negative number. So if I'm adding something to a positive and my result is negative, that means this number has to be negative, and the absolute value of this number has to be bigger than 1.2 in order for it to get to be to keep its negative, right? So if I'm thinking about this as an equation per se, if I'm trying to solve for x, we'll make that x, and I want x. Well, if I need to find x in my little equation, I use opposite operations to figure out what x is. So if I subtract 1.2, because right now it's adding 1.2, and I subtract it to both sides of that equation, right, that's going to give me my x. I do the opposite operation. Why did I subtract? Because it was opposite and it caused those to go away. So x is equal to what? Well, now you have a -1.8 and a -1.2. -1.8, -1.2, you have two negatives being added. So it becomes -3, and you could say 3.0 if you do the addition using the decimals, and it's negative. So -3.0 is the same thing as just -3. So that's what goes here is a -3, or 3.0 if you want to write it 3.0. That's fine as well. So did you follow how that worked? What I just found was that I'm telling you, -3 plus 1.2 is those two added up gave me the -1.8. Now, once I got my x here, my other number, now I take those two and I multiply them to find the top. So I have to figure out what is 1.2 times 3. And in this case, it's a -3. So when you multiply a negative and a positive, you know your answer is going to be negative. Negative times a positive is a negative. So I just have to do the multiplication here. I get 6, carry the, oh, no carrying. So 3 times 1 is 3. So it's 36 is the digits, but I got to look to see I have one decimal place. So 3.6 would be the number there. So that's -3.6 goes in that little box there. I'll rewrite it up here so we see it. -3.6 goes in the top. That's the product. Okay. So now let's keep going. B in this case, now I have the product and I have the sum. So something plus something is going to equal 4. That's the sum. But those same numbers, when I multiply them, they equal -12. Okay, so we've got to think about it. What times what is negative 12? Let's start there. Let's start with the product. What times what is negative 12? Well, we know 3 times 4 is 12. Well, is there a way to take 3 and 4, making one of them negative, right? Because it's a negative product, to get a positive 4? Nope. So I also know that 2 times 6 is 12. Well, hey, there, 2 and 6, the difference of 2 and 6 is 4, right? So I know 2 and 6 are going to be the numbers because I have a difference of 4, but difference meaning that I've got to have a subtraction going on. So in order for those to become a 4, when I add them, I would want that to be negative, right? Because negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. And sure enough, negative 2 times 6 times positive 6 is negative 12. So there's our numbers. So negative 2 and positive 6. And again, you could have them switch. I could put the 6 here and the negative 2 over there. But it has to be a negative 2 and it has to be a positive 6. All right. This one. So now I'm looking, I've got my sum. So what's true is negative 8 plus something is equal to negative 11. So once again, I can look at it as a mini equation. I'm trying to solve for x. So what if I look at the opposite of a negative number? I would actually make it a positive, right? To make that, to solve for x, I do the opposite. Negative 8, positive 8. So I do the same thing over here. Negative 11, positive 3, positive 8 gives me a negative 3, right? So the other thing to think about is maybe you saw it. Maybe you were like, oh, wait, negative 8 plus something is negative 11. I have a negative number and I'm getting more negative, right? I have a negative number and I'm going to add to it and become more negative. So negative 8, the only way to get to be more negative is adding more negatives. Well, how many more negatives do I have to add to 8 to get to negative 11 is, again, negative 3. So that's where that negative 3 comes into play. So you can make a little mini equation, solve the equation, or do some number sense here to figure out that that's negative 3. Now that I have my two numbers, negative 8 times negative 3, I multiply those to find the product. That's the top, the product. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 8 times 3 is 24. So it's positive 24. All right, last one. Here I also have to find the numbers. I'm given the product, I'm given the sum. So I know something times something is equal to negative 56. But then those same numbers, when I add them, it equals negative 1. So that's what I'm looking for. Two numbers multiplied to be negative 56, but also add up to be negative 1. So we start thinking about what are some products, what are some factors of 56? Well, I see 56 and immediately I think 8 times 7 because I've got my times tables memorized, right? 8 times 7 is 56. But I need it to be a negative 56. So one of them has to be negative. Which one is negative? Well, I know that I'm looking to see 8 and or something plus something is negative 1, right? So if this is 8 and this is 7, which one of those have to be negative in order for the sum to be negative? Negative 1. Oh, that you have to have more negatives to get a negative sum. So the answer is negative 8 and positive 7. Sure enough, they do multiply and they add to be that. So there's our answers, and that's how we look at diamond problems.